get to the set of traffic lights. And Barry, if you're gonna do the usual portion we do here, Barry's only slow it down because now we want to point to some historical places. So first, the chapel you see, King's Chapel Burial Ground. And that's the only non-Puritan burial ground you see in our city for over 30 years. But now quickly, look behind it. Can you see the building behind? You're now looking at the first public school in our city and country. The Boston Latin School, the first public school in our country, is developed inside that building. When it becomes all-inclusive, because it was boys only, is when we make it a city hall, and there's a transform the former jail as the city hall annex. King's Chapel is built on top of this burial ground in 1686. Sits here now as a stone chapel since 1754. Now, immediately on our left, the Omni Parker House, the birthplace of the Boston Cream Pie. And this is also where we see JFK propose to Jackie and held his bachelor party in 1953. 7 years earlier, you're now seeing the last resting place of Sam Adams. And now you know why by Beantown is born the joke of drinking a cold Sam Adams while you get to stare at another cold Sam Adams on the opposite side. And you can actually do it. You can see the burial ground right here. This location is actually the third oldest in our city. So it's built in 1660. You not just find Sam Adams, you also find Paul Revere, John Hancock, James Otis, all buried in here. The 5 Boston Massacre victims also rest in here. So all the way down, that obelisk-shaped headstone you see belongs to John Hancock, and this one immediately to your right, James Otis. As we are besides the church, Park Street Church, the famous place we are surrounding Park Street, one of the major places for the suffragists in our city. The Suffragist Journal is printed inside of that place for almost 60 years until we finally see the suffrage movers being installed. Only then it moves to Boylston Street. We are now by Stop 3. So you are besides the Boston Common, the oldest public park in our country, established in 1634. A congregational place since the 1660s. I'm going to point out some of the most amazing items in our city as well. Now the Common is created in 1634. It becomes a congregational place since the 1660s. So for now, almost 400 years, we have one of the amazing tour guides that belong to the Freedom Trail Foundation. And the Boston Common sits now over 50 acres big as a public park. But this location only becomes a public park when we joined the urban park movements in the early 1800s. So we had a long wait. So the great Pope John Paul II does, when he visits our city, he speaks in the Common and he populates thousands inside of this location as well. Something we've been doing for 400 years, almost 400 years now, because we've truly been congregating here since the 1660s. Now coming up immediately on your right, you'd see the Boston Massacre Memorial. The memorial that pays homage to the first 5 martyrs of our revolution. You already now know where, because you saw the circle in front of the State House that says the birthplace of our revolution. Further down, all the way down inside of the park, you'd see past a green container, Roman in his books. He also lives Boston, just very scattered in his books. He lives Blackstone Street, comes here, but then when the place becomes too big, he also leaves the Common to go to Rhode Island. When he does so, we petition to purchase this place. Our population is taxed 7 shillings a household, and that's how we come in to own it to raise our cattle. So therefore, the Boston Common, commonly owned and used by the population of Boston. Now, coming up on your left, you'd see that building on the edge, not this one, the one past it, the Grand Lodge of Masons in Massachusetts. That Grand Lodge you see is the 3rd oldest Grand Lodge in the Western Hemisphere. Set of traffic lights ahead of us, and the street we just intersected, Boylston Street. So on your maps, everything you see in between Boylston and Stewart Street belongs to Chinatown. Now, if you ever heard about the combat zone of Boston, we are also now in the last portion of the combat zone. No longer called the combat zone. Establishments that belong to the combat zone. And if you came here about 50 years ago, you could still start your night with a couple cold ones by the Thames, have a couple slices by New York Pizza, and you'd still end your night by the Fort Wall, as they all sat here. The combat zone is also an area that later on, before it becomes obsolete, he also allowed us to understand some of the effects. But once more, to your left, you'll find the Tufts University and the campuses, and of course, Chinatown. Now we are facing the back bay because eventually we'll be going all the way to the back bay. But first, we are going to be going to stops 4 and 5. Stop 4 will now be on Charles Street, surrounded by Boston Park Plaza. We will then be facing the Boston Comet and the Boston Public Comet. Coming up on your left, you'd see the New England Law School of Boston. This law school, when we first developed it, is amazingly a law school that only educates women. Another one of the amazing attempts by our city to build more equality in the judicial field. So for many years, this school only accepted women. Not the first place educating women in law in Massachusetts. We already